I think that this board has been very diligent in doing their own homework. I've been to 4 of the, whatever they're called now, public meetings, they're changing all the time. But I just want to get this out there because I think that there's starting to become confusion. I think it's going to go just in so many different directions. And I want Jimmy to read this, if you would.
Sure. I can give you a quick background. I don't pretend to understand SASS. I've not studied it, so I'm certainly not an expert in SASS at all. But I have received a lot of information that Kevin has provided you by email and information at your local meetings. And there's a lot of inconsistencies and uncertainties with a lot of the information. So it's kind of tough to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. But with all of that, a couple of things have kind of jumped out at me. One is to participate, to obligate the town to do something one way or another. That's kind of a big deal. And to do that, you should follow the law, and that is act by resolution or ordinance or local law. That's important. And with what I have read, I'm not saying that it's necessarily accurate. I haven't seen anything that says how you really participate in SASS, that you might send a letter. You don't have to, but you could. You might adopt a resolution sometime, but you don't have to. And I'm troubled by that, because if you don't have something in black and white that dictates what your intent is, then how's anybody really going to know what your intent is? And so you really do need to be cautious for that. And one question that has surfaced at least a dozen times is that if you somehow do participate in SASS, and if you decide that you're not comfortable with it, if you want to extricate yourself from it, can you? And there have been different answers that I've read on that, but I think that the clearest answer you get, there's a state regulation that suggests that the Department of State would have the discretion that it could let you out if you were in. So it's a little bit, the information you have now is kind of murky about when you get in and what your responsibilities are, and if you want to get out, how do you get out? So that started this week with Kevin contacting me, and I suggested, well, the way to do it is to adopt a resolution. And you got to do it by ordinance or by local law. The resolution will work. A resolution that resolves in the affirmative. If you want to participate, you adopt a resolution, 3 votes out of 5, and you're in. And that way, then on the record, you've taken your position, you're in. And if you don't get the 3 votes out of 5, then you're not in. For now, and you can always change your mind to jump in later, but you have to have an affirmative step to really participate. And that dovetails with a number of questions that I've received basically from all of you over the last couple of months, with SASS, what is it? And I don't pretend to know all that stuff, but in a nutshell, what I gather is SASS is a state program, state project that focuses upon visual issues, aesthetics, and that's scenic resources. It recognizes that scenic resources are important, and that topic is one that SASS focuses upon. And what happens is a number of municipalities would apparently participate. They would identify what a committee might consider to be important scenic issues. That then results in a study. The Department of State takes it. The Department of State designates the boundaries of this scenic area of statewide significance. And then what happens after that is it creates an additional layer of involvement through this SASS organization, so that if federal or state permits are at issue, then all of a sudden visual questions have to really be dealt with through SASS. And a lot of questions that I received from many of you is, well, do you look at that now? And the answer is, well, yeah, you do. Your zoning, municipalities under town law, your zoning, one of many factors that comes into zoning is aesthetics, is visual, would be the height restrictions and things like that. You also are required by state law to look at those issues with seeker. The State Environmental Quality Review Act requires you to take a hard look at environmental issues, including visual issues, before approval is given. So you're doing part of that now. Is it different than seeker? Apparently. Is it different than zoning? Apparently. But the key is that that's your call for your town. You are the local residents, you're the elected officials within your town, and local people, they look to you to make a decision. And so with all of that, what I suggested to Kevin was you don't have to, but I think it's appropriate to make a decision, and to do it on the record now or some other point. Don't get to the point where all of a sudden you're not sure if you're in or you're not, and are you committed to do something? Do you have to provide in-kind services or don't you? I suggested it makes sense to just to consider putting something on the record. So what I did was I drafted a simple resolution. When I did that, then one of Kevin's questions was, well, wait a minute, the resolution that I've drafted, even though it's pretty simple, it's in favor of SASS. And again, that's a policy thing, it's not a legal one, so I don't mean to stick my nose in on that. And I said, well, but the thing is with resolutions, they're supposed to be adopted in the affirmative. And all that means is the resolution is supposed to be adopted in favor of whatever this action is. You have somebody that makes a motion to introduce it, somebody that seconds it. That doesn't mean that the person that makes the motion necessarily favors it. It doesn't mean that the person that seconds it favors it. It means by introducing it and seconding it, now this resolution's in front of you, that takes it to the next level. Now you can publicly talk about it. You can talk about what you like and don't like, etc. if you want. And when that discussion from each of you is over, then you vote. And with the resolution, a simple majority is all you need. So you need 3 votes out of 5 to carry it. If you don't get 3 votes, then it doesn't go forward, it fails. And what I did beyond that was that I had a simple letter that I drafted. It's a 1-page letter, and that's a letter that I suggested, if you decide to vote, send it out to the other communities so they know where you stand. And it's one letter. You circle what applies and you cross out what doesn't apply. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So I'll read the resolution. You don't have to consider it tonight. You can never consider it, or you can wait another month or 2 months, whatever you look at. But I do think that if I'm hearing the same questions, that you're not sure where you are in the process, it's not a bad idea to think about voting on it. Okay? So with that, the resolution.